Okay, so he began his deal at principal here before you guys were born. And a good friend of mine, because I got to work with him for 16 years in the office, and I learned so much about leadership because of his actions every day. How many of you guys saw me cook chicken nuggets last year or the year before? I learned that because this guy was the guy that jumped in and cooked the chicken nuggets when they needed to be cooked before, when they tasted good.
They were actually deep fried.
Maybe something you don't know about Mr. Willis is he started out as a math teacher, like all the great ones do. He taught in Kentucky, he taught at Triton Central, but he taught for the longest time in his career at Muncie Central. A tough place to teach and coach. Totally different from here, except for the 11 fights that we've had this year. Little commentary there. As a track coach at Muncie Central for 20 years, he took athletes to North Central Conference championships when the North Central Conference was super competitive. He took kids to the sectional finals and the regional finals and the state finals, and was a state champion coach as a track coach at Muncie Central. He is a member of the Delaware County Hall of Fame for athletics. A lot of people don't know that because the year that he was inducted, he didn't tell anybody here that he was getting inducted. That's humility. I think somebody touched on humility early in our talk today. I'd like to introduce to you the former principal of Shenandoah, guy that ordered the fish sticks and was never fired, Mr. Charlie Willis.
I'm really old school. We don't have to worry about technology. I am going to start though with a whole list of disclaimers. The first of which I appreciate Coach McCall and Coach Bennett asking me to present today. What they didn't know in 40 years of education and dealing with kids all day, the one thing I probably despise and most uncomfortable with than anything else is giving a speech. So I figured at my old age, there's nothing wrong with challenging yourself a little bit every once in a while. And I graciously said, I do this. I'm glad they turned the center lights on. So like I said, old school. I may have to read some of this to you. But I'm going to ask you a lot of questions. The more answers I get, the less I have to read. I apologize right off the bat to some of you I know really well. And so if I'm not getting answers, you'll probably get called on. Not trying to embarrass anybody, but just let me know. Huff Dog, you're in my Ivy Tech class, so that's an easy one for me to get after real quick and easy because he knows I'm always asking questions in our Ivy Tech class. So I expect you to participate a little bit. My last disclaimer. When we talk about leadership, it's very, very easy. Let me back up. Mr. Kowski didn't mention, I also was a head girls basketball coach. So I've had experience coaching a team sport and coaching an individual sport. And when it comes to leadership, a lot of people, it's so easy to concentrate on team sports. But it applies everywhere. Fortunate enough, we had a young man. I'm looking for him. Where's Nation?
He had to leave
All right.
Oh, he's still here, never mind.
Went to the regionals in singles tennis. Had a great season, correct? How good of a tennis player is he going to be practicing by himself? Tennis is an individual sport. Does he get any better practicing by himself? Yeah, he can practice serving, he can practice volleys, but until somebody actually hits it back to him, how good is he going to be? Where's AJ by himself on a wrestling mat in practice? He didn't get very far. He can't even practice a takedown. It's hard to take down a shadow. So when we talk about leadership, it's just not a team thing. It goes across the board. So I'm going to start with a little individual stuff right off the bat. Each one of you individually was asked to be here today. First question, why? Why were you asked to be part of this? I won't call on you first, Don.
Because the coaches have picked us and believe that we can be leaders.
Coaches have picked us because they believe we can be leaders. Absolutely. So, what's that mean? How many of you had somebody say, you know, I think you've got a lot of potential? How many have heard that? Are you complimented by having somebody tell you you've got a lot of potential? Is that a compliment? Who in here is a freshman? Okay. Freshman, you haven't had a lot of high school experience yet. That's probably a good thing to say, you've got potential. Where's my seniors? You probably shouldn't feel so good about having somebody tell you got potential. Let's look at why. Somebody give me a definition for potential.
Having the ability to be really good.
Having the ability to be really good. Outstanding definition. I looked it up and found a 2-word definition. Unrealized ability. Unrealized ability. So what's unrealized mean? We've got a definition of that, one word.
Hasn't been shown yet.
Hasn't been shown yet. If I'm a freshman and I played on the football team this year, our football team had a great year. You still may have potential because you were a freshman. Do you ever think you only have 3 more chances to not be unrealized? I saw Guffey come down here early. I was going to ask him about the peer pressure that he moved the chair from over here, or if that was leadership, but we'll talk about that later. Guffey had a pretty good career as a football player at Shenandoah. But as a senior, somebody goes,
Well, I got 1 year left.
I know. As a senior, if they come back and say, he could have been a pretty good football player, is potential a compliment anymore? Got 1 year left to get out of unrealized, possibly. As you get older, potential needs to be an insult, not a compliment. Because as you get older, if it's still unrealized, you haven't done anything. If potential is unrealized ability, once you gain experiences and don't take advantage of those experiences, then you haven't done anything. And it's now turned into an insult. How many people in here, middle school, high school, whatever, have been a class officer or a student council representative? Raise your hand. How do you get elected to those positions? Class votes for you. Just because the class votes for you, does that make you a leader? No. Who in here somewhere in their athletic career has been a team captain? How do you get placed in that position of being a team captain? Coach picked you. Maybe your teammates picked you. Does that make you a leader? Not necessarily. Maybe that's still just some of that potential again. So what is leadership? And this has been mentioned 2 or 3 times already. I brought in a framed poster that I had hung in my office at Muncie Central and here at Shenandoah for 20 years. And it still hangs up in my house now. I didn't take it home and put it away in a closet. I took it home and put it up.
Please release all voice members to the office at this time. Thank you.
And if you can't read it, it says leaders. Leadership is action, not position. Leadership is action, not position. Just because you get elected to student council, it doesn't make you a leader. It takes some action. Just because you're a team captain doesn't make you a leader. It takes some action. We're moving right along. I had to get to 2 pages. I haven't had to read anything yet. Let's throw out another question that I think gets not asked enough. If you were all in here because your coaches think you could be good leaders, why do we need leaders? What's the whole point? What's the purpose? Why is it that we need leaders? You ever think about that? We talk about leadership a lot. The word leadership gets thrown out a lot. But maybe we don't spend enough time saying, well, why do we need them? I'll tell you, in my opinion, there's 3 things. One, we've heard this term before, goals. We've set a goal, and we need to try to meet the goal. Another one I think has been touched on. There's a task that needs to get done. That might be shagging balls in volleyball. That might be picking up the down markers at the end of the football game. Okay, there's a task that needs to be done. And the third one is there's a problem that needs to be solved. Those are the things leaders need to attack. How do we meet our goals? How do we accomplish our task? And how do we solve problems? Leaders are the ones that are looking at those things and saying, okay, how do we do it? So I'm going to try to approach that a little bit with what I think are a couple very contrasting leadership styles. One leadership style I call the worker. The worker is the person who, given a task, given a goal, they're going to jump in with both feet. They're going to give 100%. They're going to do everything in their power to get it done because they're a worker. Some people might consider them leaders by example. Just because of their hard work, They are setting a great example for others. That example may be enough to get a few people to follow them and jump in and assist and help out. The problem is, if you're only a worker, there are people out there who will take advantage of you. They will recognize you're a worker. You work hard. You take care of things. You get things done. The people who take advantage say, well, we'll just keep giving them more things to do. If they work so hard at everything, if we just keep giving them more things to do, and more things to do, more things to do, they'll just keep getting things done and lets us off the hook. Well, unfortunately for the worker, sometimes that list of things to get done gets so big, it's impossible to accomplish all of them. Because they can't do it all by themselves. You can never get it all done by yourself. On the other end of the spectrum is a leadership style I call the delegator. The delegator says, hey, there's a lot of work to get done. There's a lot of goals we want to meet, a lot of tasks to do. I know what to do. I'm just going to make everybody else do it. I'm going to delegate. The problem with a delegator is at some point in delegating this task, it almost becomes, instead of being a delegator, you become a dictator. And then who's following you? If you're dictating to everybody what they're supposed to do, they're not following. They're not following at all. So let me build on that just a little bit and give you a little bit of Shenandoah history. Well, let me add one more thing to it. I think a true leader needs to have both the qualities of a worker and a delegator, with a slight twist or two in there. He or she must be willing to work, but realize all the work cannot be done alone. Tasks that need to be delegated, the leader must do their part to see that they're working at it also. So now for the history lesson. Seniors. Of the seniors who are in here, raise your hand if your freshman year you were ever on the homework list. Congratulations. Who can tell me about the homework list? A couple of people back there know well about the homework list.
You get put on the homework list if you don't have your assignments with it.
You get put on the homework list if you don't have all your assignments put in. We had the homework list for how many years? 6 years, 7 years, probably. Let me tell you how the homework list came about. And then I'm going to try to apply that to why you guys are here. Mr. Reeder, Mrs. Kowski, and myself, we would regularly have conversations, discuss what kinds of things are going on in school, what kinds of things we each need to be aware of, what kinds of things we need to try to address. And one year, at the end of the year, Mr. Reeder brought up, we got a ton of kids failing classes. We got kids everywhere failing classes. Because Mr. Reeder openly said, we have so many kids failing classes in this one grade. If we don't change the culture in this one grade, I think a lot of those kids are going to fail and not graduate. So that summer, Mr. Sikowski did some research. He looked at why these kids were failing classes. And he found out the number one reason they're failing classes is they weren't doing their homework. they decided they just weren't gonna do it. And it was those zeros that were causing them to fail. So, over the summer, we put a little plan together that culminated in the beginning of our homework list. It's fine. We identified a problem, and we were going to try to tackle the problem. Now, the biggest difficulty there was Mr. Skowski and I were in the classroom assigning those assignments to try to get these kids to do their homework. So, we have to answer a question. I'm going to give you these 3 questions. The first question is, what can we do? So, as a high school administration, we had to look at what we can do to try to solve this problem of homework. We put it together and said, hey, we're just going to make kids accountable. We're going to make sure they do their homework. We're going to communicate they need to do their homework. We're going to emphasize how important homework is. That's what we can do. Now, is that going to solve the problem? Not really. Because, like I said, we're not in the classroom. So, we then have to ask teachers to be part of this. That was the second question. What do we need others to do? We answered the question, what do we need to do? We then have to look at what do we need others to do? Well, we need teachers to communicate with parents. We need teachers to communicate with students. We need teachers to report to the office kids who aren't doing their homework. Well, there's only one tough part about that. Teachers work hard every day. They've got lots of other things they have to do. Really, it was pretty easy for the teacher to save them time to put a 0 on the grade book. And I was in the classroom for 21 years. The number one thing I hated more than anything else as a teacher for 21 years was grading makeup work. Gosh, it's awful. I'm telling you, makeup work is the worst. Because you got one assignment from page 205, you got this other assignment from page 215, you got a report that somebody else turned in, and you're only grading one thing at a time, they're all different. It's extra work, it's extra time than if they were just there in class, did their homework when they're supposed to be. So we're going to teachers and tell them, you need to do this. What do others need to do to help us solve this problem? Here's the key question. For us to get this done, then I think we had to ask the third question. How can we help others so they can do their part? If I'm asking teachers to do more work, I've got to be willing to accept something else so that I can help them do what I need them to do. So in our original homework list, Mr. Kowski got the names through the computer every day. Kept the homework list. We printed the list. We put it up around the school. We made announcements. We called kids to the office. If you were on the homework list, you had one more chance to get it turned into your teacher. If you didn't get it turned in, then we told you when you were going to stay after school to get the homework done. And those students had to stay until it was done. Did they stay with their teacher? No. They've already got way too much. We agreed they're going to stay with us. That was going to be part of our part until it gets done. How well did it work? If I remember, this one young man played trombone in the band, and he and I walked out to the football field together on a Friday night for the home football game at 7 o'clock, because it was until 7 o'clock for him to get his homework done. It also meant Mr. Kowski and I spent a lot of time carpooling kids to Middletown or wherever, because they stayed so long they didn't have a ride home. But they got their homework done. Now, how's this all play into you? Well, I think it goes back to 3 questions. If you're going to be a leader, I think the true leader has to be able to go through these 3 questions. And this applies to whether it's a goal, whether it's a task, or whether it's a problem. They still all apply. The first is, what can I do? What can I do? What can I do to solve the problem? What can I do to complete the task? What can I do to meet the goal? That might be doing a morning workout. That might be hitting the weight room a little harder. That's more of an individual kind of thing. But then you've got to ask the second question. The second question is, what do I need others to do? I may be putting in all the extra work, but if I don't get others doing the same thing, we're not going to get done what we want to get done. So what do I need others to do? And then I think the difference maker is the third question: how can I help others so that they can do their part? How can I help others so they can do their part? So if you think about your teams, think about your sports. You know somebody on your team that, particularly in practice, just doesn't tend to work very hard? Somebody who doesn't give it full effort all the time? Now, I haven't said the word lazy. So I want you to understand. You may think somebody's lazy. They're probably not. Sometimes athletes think they're working hard. They believe they're working hard. They just haven't had somebody motivate them or push them far enough to realize that threshold of how good they could be is someplace else. I'll never accuse people of being lazy. I accuse them more of they just don't know that they can go hard. What can I do? What do I need others to do? And how can I help others so they can do their part? So you tell me. Goal, task, problem. What can you do as athletes for the teammates on your team? What can you do? Still got some ideas. Here it might be a little tougher if I have to start calling on people. What can you do to make your team better? What can you do to make yourself better? Give me some examples.
Put an extra time outside of practice to share your practice one time.
Okay. Put in more time. What other things can you do? Ask somebody to join you.
Appreciate other teammates for everything they do.
Okay? Show appreciation to your teammates.
Teammates are doing something right. Ask those on the team how it gets better.
Okay? Help people do things right. It reminds me of a basketball clinic I went 2 years ago. Ever heard the saying, practice makes perfect? Because practice makes permanent. If you practice something wrong, it'll become permanently wrong, not perfect. So help your teammates out so you're doing things right. Anybody else got some ideas?
Make an effort to create like a team chemistry.
Team chemistry. Bring people together. Second question, what do I need others to do? Anybody got ideas on how can I get others to do things?
Challenge them.
Challenge them. Kind of motivation thing. How many practices you ever been to that it starts out with drills? Raise your hand. Start practice with drills. And I don't care if they're agility drills, plyometrics, whatever. Start practice with drills. You ever change who you did the drills with? Or you just go to the same person every time? The third question's the hard one, though. The third question, I think, is the toughest one to answer, and it's the separator. How can I help others so they can do their part? That becomes more of a motivation thing. So let's look at an example. You're only as strong as the weakest link. Raise your hand if you heard that one before. Okay? I've got some links up here. Paper clips. Okay? Fortunately for the people off the sides and the back, I did pick up the jumbo one, so it might be a little easier to see them. Put my hand up in the air. How strong is that link? And I'm talking about a paper clip. Depends on what you're doing with it. It's pretty strong if I've got about 10 papers that I want to make sure I keep together and put the paper clip on. I put about 50 sheets of paper, put the paper clip on there, what happens? Papers fall out because it gets stretched out, right? It gets stretched out. I can do my part to make my link as strong as I can get it. And I can hope there's a few other people who will join me to make their link strong. That's the worker. Okay? The delegator is going to maybe get some more people to make their link strong. You know what the leader does? The leader takes the links and makes it a chain. Why is this chain stronger than the individuals? They're helping each other. So that if one of these links starts to get weak, what do they have? They got somebody on either side of them joined with them to meet the goal, to complete the task, or to solve the problem. And it's not until you can answer that third question, how can I help others get their part done, do you make the change? So whether it's an individual sport or a team sport, go out and start forming chains. Don't worry about that weak link. Make a chain instead. In conclusion, I hope everybody has a great rest of the day. It's not too bad going in the middle, because you hear what the first two guys say. see how many times you're gonna repeat something. It takes a little pressure off the end, particularly after lunch. You guys might be a little sleepy since it's still a little warm in here. But I'll leave you with this. Bring it all to the table, or that one. Bring it all to the table, do your best every day. But as you do, help others do the same thing. Leadership takes care of itself at that point. And if anybody has any questions, I'd be glad to entertain any questions. Because I'm old. And old guys are supposed to have answers. Anybody? Anybody need a paperclip? Taking so many good notes. Wants to be sure it doesn't lose it. Anybody else? If not, good luck to all of you. And I appreciate the time to be here today.